evening, campers. It is Kieran, and hey, look, we got rid of one of the wardrobes. Hallelujah, people. But whilst I'm working on a DIY project, I'm also working hard on the Man Booker project. Therefore, we are going to discuss today The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. I bought this book back in 2014, and out of the most recent winners, I actually don't hear a lot about this book, which is why it stayed on my to be read for 6 years. Yeah, that's a long time. But nevertheless, a lovely person, you might have heard of it on book too, it's Simon Savage, commented on one of my Instagram posts and suggested that I read this. So I did. As an aside, if you have a Booker winner that you love, adore, and are really passionate about, please let me know either down below or jump on my Instagram page. I will make sure that it is a priority for me to read rather than just picking up a random one on the bookshelves. So if you do have one, please let me know. Anyway, back to the review. And 6 years ago, I remember Richard Flanagan being interviewed about this book, and I'm going to leave the link to that interview down below. His reasoning and his journey about why he not wrote the book, but why he needed this book to be written is really compelling, and it was definitely one of the moments of a Booker winner that not so much resonated with me, but I was very much curious to figure out what was going on in this book. Simply put, this discusses the Burma Death Railway from both the prisoner of war and the Japanese command perspective. Before we can actually discuss the book, let's talk about the Burma Death Railway. This is just going to be the most simplest explanation in the world. Japan had taken over the areas of Thailand and Burma, which is now Myanmar, and in order to help with the war, wanted to create a railway that spanned the two countries. Therefore, it was put on the onus of the prisoners of war to build this railway. Tragically, the railway would not actually be of any use, for Japan would lose the war after the horrific Hiroshima bombings. Such is war that men's lives are lost in bounty. But at the heart of the novel, for the reason why the railway needed to be built, was the Japanese honour and subservience, I would say, for the emperor. Subservient not in the fact that they were nice to the prisoners of war. It's quite opposite. There's scenes of torture. There are scenes of depravity. There are scenes of complete heartlessness to another human being. It seems the will of the Japanese is to create the railway, and the railway therefore must be built by any means possible. Alongside the inhumane treatment of men, we throw in a little bit of racism, where the Japanese believe that the white men are not as dutiful and not as willing to work as the Japanese themselves. And we're in for a ride. We're in for a very interesting ride. And to start us on this ride is Dorigo Evans, a man who we see throughout the novel, who I would say not primarily the story is based on, but very much revolves around. Hold up, Kira. Dorigo, that's an interesting name. Oh, we have not even touched on some of the names in this book. Some of the most imaginative names, such as Sheephead Morton, Jimmy Bigelow, Rooster McNeese, Darky Gardner, to name but a few fantastic names that come up in here. Dorigo is telling us what is going on within this story, and one bit that I struggled all the way through was his affair with his uncle's wife, Amy. I don't know why was this in here? Why was this in here? It was a really odd move, I think. There was just the Booker had put out this one because it was a great love story. It's a cliche. It's a cliched love story of I felt as though it went nowhere, that the scenes were pointless. There's one bit where they're climbing over a fence, and Amy cuts her upper thigh on some barbed wire, and Dora goes like laying down, like kissing the blood off her, and like, oh, the blood, and how it turns into balls as I lick them off or kiss them off. There's moments like that detract from the structure of the novel. The structure of this book is very important. The title itself, The Narrow Road to the Deep North, is an allusion towards famed Japanese poet Basho from the 17th century, which discusses his meditations on life through walking through Japan. And all the chapters themselves are very short. I want to say tight, but I'm going to say short rather than tight. And Richard Flanagan has said that this reflects the Japanese style of writing, in so much that what the Japanese have done to the prisoners of war has changed their lives to an unfathomable thought. So much so that after the war, they cannot escape the life that they had on the Death Railway. Everything that came before seems a memory. It's not the life that they lived, which I think is a very good point. My issue is that I don't feel that, though the chapters being short, they're not tight. I feel as though there was always air being let out of these one-page chapters, or that they were just taking up room about bits of story that I didn't feel were necessary. And because the story is very fragmented, you have moments where we talk about Dorrigo's love affair with his uncle's wife Amy, and then flick it back to the horrors of the railway, and they clash so much. It doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason with them, and there's a bit that I utterly groaned when I read, is that there's a moment where Dorrigo is burning the dead men around him because they have cholera, and it's the only way they can try to stop the disease because they have no medicines and drugs. The only thing that comes into his mind is, oh, I miss Amy at this moment. And I felt all the way through that there was a detraction from the trauma. I feel as though I was meant to take from this book the horrors that was the Death Railway, but I didn't feel any of that. For what happened to the men, for what happened to the prisoners of war, I felt no empathy towards them. I felt very apathetic. It's more graphic than descriptive, if that makes sense. Just saying that someone has cholera and is defecating themselves and they're struggling to get to the next camp for the base, it's very matter of fact, but I feel as though it was lost between this chaotic structure that's going on. We're looking back, we're looking forward, we're in the camp, someone dies. Ooh, what about Amy? Oh, I really like shagging my uncle's wife. And I really struggled. I really struggled with this book. And to say that hurts, because I feel what this book wants to achieve. And let's bear in mind, it's Richard Flanagan discussing his father's life. Richard was a child of the Death Railway. Like, it's a very personable book to him, but I didn't feel anything. And I feel that though there's better war novels that discuss hard-hitting topics like this, that get my gut in knots. And I never felt that. I never felt that at all. Through the dysentery, the cholera, the ulcers, the hard labour, I felt nothing towards these prisoners of war. I felt nothing. To the point that I was glancing over some sentences, going, "Oh right, we're talking about this now. Let's move on. I've got the point." Maybe that is it. I don't want to say it was repetition for repetition's sake, because clearly, if you're a prisoner of war, you do the same thing over and over and over and over again. I feel as though the most striking thing about this was the affair, and that shouldn't be happening in a book that's about war. That I should be like, why do I keep thinking about this affair that's going on? Because it was so cliche and so shoved down your throat, very much reminisced over and over again. And I understand Dorigo wants to think of those moments. For Hope, he wants to think about the better parts of his life. I get that. I feel the only agent that was keeping this book together was Burma Death Railway. And once you've got past that, of, right, I understand what's going on now, and it's horrific, you've got another 300 pages to go. I really wanted to like this. I really wanted to like this. But like the railway, it just went nowhere. It started to build on something, and then very much was disassembled through Flanagan's fragmentation. I'm really annoyed that I didn't like this. I'm really annoyed because I spent so long on this book trying to like it, only to realise halfway I'd probably got to the worst part. I thought, oh, okay, he's dead. It's a real disappointed 3 out of 10. It's a disappointed 3 out of 10. It was better than the Testament. It was better than Nothing's going to be worse than the Testament. If anything is worse than the Testament in this project, well done. Well done, you book. I'm looking at you over there. You're going to be in somewhere, aren't you? Oh. Please, if you've read this book and you agree with me or disagree, please do let me know down in the comments. And as I've said before, if you have a book winner that you really want me to read, or you want to read it but unsure if you want to, I'd rather get me to do the hard work to recommend, wouldn't I? Let me know. Have a lovely day. Tally ho. Yeah, it's Kieran. Bye.